Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday, where we talk about tech, all kinds of tech things relative to senior living. Today, my guest is Hilary King with Charter Senior Living, and they are doing some amazing things. But before we get started on our conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Hilary, welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm so excited about having this conversation with you. We chatted a little bit, I guess, last week, and you guys are doing some amazing stuff with AI. But let's start out with who you are and who Charter is.
Sure. As you said, I'm Hilary King. I'm the Senior Director of Business Intelligence and Innovation at Charter. I have been with Charter for over 7 years, so I'm actually the longest standing associate at Charter outside of the co-founders, Kim and Kevin Benema.
Wow.
Yeah. And Charter, started off as a very small boutique company. When I joined, we were 8 communities strong. And today we sit at 63 and growing. So we're certainly getting bigger, but Charter is all about our residents and our team members. We've got a great culture, and that's what makes us so different. And that's what makes me stick around. But we also, with being a smaller company at the beginning, we've tried to really be ahead of the curve with technology, which I love. And I'm kind of at the forefront of doing that.
And the other thing that I find really interesting that warms my heart, because we're the same way, is you're a virtual company.
Yes. Yeah, we have no corporate office. Back in the day, people thought we were crazy. And then COVID hit and they thought, wow, that's kind of a good idea, right? So we are very, very boots on the ground in our communities. That's how Kevin wanted it. He came from some bigger organizations where the senior leaders sat in a really nice corporate office, but didn't really go into communities a lot. And we are vastly different than that. So all of us have a home office in our home, but otherwise there is no office. So we spend a lot of time in our communities, getting that face-to-face, helping our team members, meeting our families and our residents. And that's what we're all about. Yeah.
Okay, a couple things I got to ask you about with this virtual thing before we get to the technology, because
Sure.
I know that people are going to wonder about it. What about things like accounting functions and stuff like that? Doesn't that sort of require a central office?
No. So actually, unlike most corporations where they have a corporate office and all these people that we call back of the house are sitting there, we actually farm that out to a bunch of different vendors, right? So we have a payroll vendor and we have an accounting vendor and we have an IT vendor. So it's all different vendors, vendor partners. We consider them part of our family, but they don't actually work for us. They work for different companies. So yeah, that's how we manage it all. And when Kevin started, it was so small, he couldn't afford to have all those corporate people you needed. And that's kind of where it came from. And obviously he didn't want the overhead of a lease and everything else. And it's just worked out really, really well for us. It also means that we can live wherever we want as long as we're by an airport, right? So, some corporations are based in Nashville or Chicago and everybody feels like they have to live there. We all live all over the East Coast.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it makes so much sense. You save the real estate costs. You can really hire the best people because often really good people don't want to move, right?
Right.
And so it makes perfect sense. And of course, we have a number of our sponsor partners who are outsourced companies. We're really big fan of outsourcing, and frankly, kind of shocked at how reluctant so many senior living companies are to outsource. You look at hospitals, and they hardly anything. They actually don't hardly provide anything themselves. Everything is outsourced, right?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, okay, so let's jump and talk about your AI journey. It is something we are super, super passionate about at Foresight. I use AI virtually every day on just all kinds of things. And I think that it will continue to transform the industry. Of course, AI was all over the news yesterday with this big new was a DeepSeek model that at least theoretically is better and cheaper than what has been done by ChatGPT and some of the others. So, but let's I don't want to sort of start by talking about kind of how you think. We'll get to some specifics that you're doing, but I want to just talk a little bit about how you think about AI as part of the organization.
Yeah. So when you look at our workforce, it's dwindling and dwindling. Yet we're getting more and more seniors. So what I look at it is, what can I replace AI with that a human doesn't have to do? Obviously, we're in the industry of care. So, we need to provide that care. But what are the things I can take off people's plates with AI to free them up to do what's really important, which is the care, right? And so that's how I look at AI, as the simple tasks that machines can do for us that are important, but can be done quicker, easier with AI.
Yep. And so let's talk about some of the areas where you're currently using AI.
And so we started our AI journey, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. And where we started, I selfishly did it. I'm the admin of all of our systems. I know all of our systems. I train all of our senior leaders, our executive directors. And we were growing and growing and growing, but there was still only me. And so we started off with an AI mascot called Noelle. And what I have done is I have taught Noelle our handbook, our policies, our procedures. And I do a lot of training videos and training worksheets. I've loaded all of that into Noelle. So it is a place where all of our managers can go and ask questions, right? So instead of having to rely on HR, let's say, to say, what's the policy in the handbook? They can look at it in Noelle. If they're wondering, how do I do a discount in our billing system? They can ask Noelle, right? And so it has freed up my time a lot. And it's nice for them because, sometimes people, it's not our culture, but sometimes people come for cultures where if you ask that question too many times, you're frowned upon. And so it really helps our new associates and our new communities that we take over, because they've got one spot to go to and they can ask the same question 10 times, right? And get the same answer and feel okay about the fact that they're not bugging somebody 10 times with the same question. So that's where we started. But we have lots more going on now since we started there.
So I guess one of the questions that I've had a number of people I'm talking to, obviously, about AI, because I'm really passionate about it. And one of the areas I hear, I don't know, concern, frustration, challenges is employee adoption. How big a struggle is that? Is that a struggle or a challenge at all?
No, it definitely has been. And so I've had to explain to people, especially people that have been with us for a long time, how I'm taking a different approach to things. When we were 20 communities, you could email me, I could quickly email you back. But that's not the case anymore. So, one of the main things I do is I'm typically on the road every week. And my out of the office has a link to Noelle. Hey, if you have a question, ask Noelle. And now when people do email me, I explain to them, I'm not trying to be rude, but I need to get you to the resources that you have at your fingertips, because I'm typically training people every week and I'm in meetings or conferences. And so I'm not going to get back to you till the end of the day. So I try to say, oh, great question. Here, go here and ask Noelle. So I have to reinforce it time and time again with them, but people are getting better and better because I'm doing that, right? If I would continue to answer the questions and not push them towards the resource, then they probably wouldn't adopt it. But they're actually doing a great job. And even though Noelle knows all of our policies and things, I get really excited because I jump in there and I see life enrichment directors being like, write me a flyer about yoga, et cetera. And boom, it's our own ChatGPT, and it writes these lovely flyers for them. So they're using it for more than just what I built it for, which is great.
And it learns on itself, right? Since it's your own, which means that every time somebody asks it a question and it answers, it gets a little bit smarter, right?
Yes. And, because I'm the creator of it, I always tell people, if she's not acting so smart, let me know, so that I can make her smarter, because things, our industry loves acronyms, right? So I've had to teach her more and more acronyms. Somebody might say something ED. I had to teach her, well, an ED is an executive director, right? Things like that. And so, I go in there and I look at answers and I go, I could tweak this and make it a little bit better. But the more people use it, and that's how I teach them, the smarter she becomes, right? And the better she becomes.
And the other thing I'm learning, and I'm sort of going on a little bit of a side. So I'm working on a project right now where I'm extracting data from a list. And so I'm copying the list. And one of the things I'm asking ChatGPT to do is to go out and find websites for these particular companies. And what's fascinating is that I'm finding that ChatGPT is a little bit like a kid, because if I don't, it'll do a really good job of finding the websites, and then all of a sudden go back, not found, not found, not found. And I go back and ChatGPT and say, wait a minute, this is really important. You got to go find that. And it will rework it and do it. Well, do you have any thought? Like, why does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it is like a child, right? And we learn so many things. And, with my Noelle, I had to teach her everything, right? And I continue to teach her. But what I found, which is kind of to your point, is I didn't realize that AI could forget stuff, and it does. So I was recently working with our vendor that, created this mascot for us. I was like, why doesn't my mascot know this anymore? They're like, well, sometimes they forget, right? Which is a struggle, because you're like, how could technology forget? But it does. And so, one thing I'm working on with them is we're almost there, where there's going to be a refresh button, which I can automatically reload everything I've taught the mascot new again, so that it's constantly fresh. And that's really going to be important for us too, because we're about to change our handbook. We're going to rewrite a policy, right? And so being able to have that kind of refresh and have it automatically, put that into the mascot's brain again is going to be super important and helpful.
Yeah, one of the other ways I'm using ChatGPT is when I go to conferences, I'm using it to capture information. So I'll take pictures of badges and then dictate some stuff, or business cards and dictate some stuff. But one of the things I've learned is that it doesn't do very well over multiple days. So at the end of each day, I've got to have it download it. And so there are lots and lots of quirks. I want to get to this question here. Do users have access to improve Noelle, or just you?
No, just me. I'm the admin of the system. So the users just can ask questions, but that's why I say, let me know. And in certain cases, they can improve Noelle, because asking more questions or asking it in different ways makes Noelle smarter. But if it's really off the rails, it's really me as the admin, because I essentially have control of her brain. And I load the information into Noelle.
Yeah. So if just for sort of a broad general, in case people don't know, if you have a paid account with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, it actually learns you and it remembers you. With of course, the caveat that sometimes, like a kid, it forgets the stuff you think it should know, but it actually gets smarter about you. So if I were to go to my ChatGPT and say, go write an article that sounds like me, I wouldn't have to give it a lot of instruction, because it knows me and it knows how I write. By the way, I don't write articles that way. I might use them to make things better with ideas. But when you read my content, it's not ChatGPT. It's never AI content. It's me content. Before we continue on, I do want to do a brief mention of one of our sponsors.
Sire! Enemies at the gates, we need reinforcements!
Deploy Fit Cybersecurity. When it comes to cybersecurity, you're going to get attacked. The question is, what are you going to do to prepare for it? Fit Cybersecurity provides a turnkey 24/7 service that works with your current tools, software, and your team for custom support, so you can minimize damage and recover quickly. Don't let your business be unprepared. Click the link to schedule a call with Fit Cybersecurity today.
I have to confess, that's the first time I've seen that, and I love it.
I was thinking the same thing.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about where else you're using AI in the organization.
Yeah, so we've developed another mascot, which is for sales, and so we have taught Delia all about our prospect-centered selling, we are teaching it more and more so that our salespeople can say, "Well, I've got this barrier. What should I do?" Or here's a bunch of information about this person. What could I do that's creative to follow up with them? Or they have this issue. What solutions could I give? So we're doing that. The other thing that we're doing is our electronic health records. Is we are about to beta test a move out predictor with them with AI. So in our industry, we are so strapped for time. And so, when there's a big change in somebody's care, of course we do an assessment, but that's the easy thing, right? But what we're not doing a good job at because we're so busy is there could be 50 tiny little things that change with a resident, and that could mean a change in level of care, but it doesn't jump out at us, right? Because it's not a huge event. And so what we're going to be looking at is they have AI that's going to read hundreds and hundreds of data points to go, hey, wait a minute, you should look at this resident. You should see if maybe they need more care. This is going to help us staff better and also make sure that we're giving all the care that resident needs, even though it hasn't been a major event in their life, which means that they can stay with us longer and stay safer in their home with us. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to kind of pilot that this year. The other thing we're doing in terms of care is we have Aspirion with Augie, and that is fall detection. So it's a monitor in the room. And that way, especially with memory care, they don't remember to push a pendant or pull a pull cord. It's going to get us to our residents faster because it's going to alert us when it senses a fall. The other really cool thing about it is it's not really capturing their image. It's just a stick figure, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And then from a training perspective, we can see how that caregiver helped lift that person or move that person. And we can say, oh, you probably want to do it this way, right? And so it's going to really help us from a training perspective. But we're really excited about it in memory care for, like I said, being able to get to that resident much faster, which means hopefully their care is going to be better. And, we won't have to send them out to the hospital, which is so disrupting, right? So we're doing that as well, which, we're piloting in a few communities also.
Okay, so I have this question, and I have very mixed feelings about it personally. Is there are people who are playing with creating AI companions for older people? So call people up, have conversations. Potentially, you could have. I've seen at least one where they've got an avatar that you can actually talk to. And there's a big part of me that thinks, man, you need humans talking to humans, and there's something just inherently wrong with talking to machines. But on the other hand, it's really hard to be able to do that. And so do you have any thoughts? Are you guys playing with that at all? Or I'm just really curious about how you're thinking about this at all.
No, we are not playing with that. That's why I say we're very about giving the care and being involved with our residents. We really wanted to take away that monotonous stuff away from our people so that they can spend the quality time with our residents. And I kind of agree with you. There's good and there's bad to it. And the other thing you have to remember is it's only as good as whoever's teaching it. It doesn't have a conscience, things like that. So no, I mean, we're really looking at it from taking away clinical tasks, taking away business office tasks, things like that, reporting tasks, and not the human connection for sure.
Cool. So where have we missed anything else that you're doing right now?
Not yet, but I'm looking forward to doing some more clinical monitoring with AI, taking away some of those mundane tasks of reading temperatures and things like that, and getting alerts based on that. Somebody's temperature is a little bit high. A human being doesn't have to go take the temperature. That monitoring does it, and then it alerts saying, "Hey, this seems a little too high for this resident. Their temperature doesn't really run this, at this point." So we're not there yet, but I'm in the early phases of talking to people about that and moving in that direction.
So are you using it at all for, or well, actually, I'm going to do this differently. If you sort of look at your roadmap over the next 5 years, and I know this is a really hard question because AI is the capabilities are just evolving so fast. Where do you think you'll be with AI in the next 5 years?
So another thing that I'm hoping for, right, is that I can load, let's say, a weekly menu, and AI can do the ordering for me, right?
Ooh,
I don't have to take up the time of my dining services director doing the ordering, because AI reads the menu, AI knows how many people we have in the building, and they can automatically place that order. Obviously, there's going to be some extras that that dining services director would order, but that's something that we could quickly take off their plate. Another thing too that we deal a lot with, which AI should be able to do, is it will be smart enough to know what to replace something with. Right now, it's like if you're out of cod, it doesn't know what to order. But with AI, it should be able to get you to the point where it's like, if there's a issue with GFS or Cisco or whoever, and they don't have that fish, it knows to automatically substitute X for it, right? So that that will take it, that hands-on stuff. And then a lot of financial stuff. We do a lot of reporting manually, and AI isn't great yet with numbers. Like, they're really good at other things, but if you said, look at these financials and point out XYZ, it's not quite there yet. But being able to get ahead of those financial issues, get ahead of spending, like, ooh, there's a red flag. Why is this community spending this much this month? It's not, that's like an outlier. Labor, right? Being able to predict what our labor should be based on level of care, that would be awesome. That we do all that manually now. We gotta look at the level of care and say, how many people should we have? But if AI can know the building and know the regs, it can say, this is how many people you should have, which would be awesome, because labor is our biggest expense, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about labor is and I don't know how granular you are in terms of tracking, how much time does a caregiver or any staff spend with any given resident. But again, this sort of feeds back to, if they're using more time with a resident, then it starts to tell you something potentially about the resident's condition. But it might also tell you something about the team member in terms of, why are they slowing down? Not necessarily as a punitive tool, but maybe it'll say, hey, there's something going on in that person's life that we got to pay attention to, because I know that human part is really important to you guys. So
yeah, so we are starting to look at that, right? And the technology is supposed to be smart enough to know who's in the room. I don't exactly remember how, but it does. And so from an operations perspective, I agree with you, Steve. I think it'd be really interesting. Why does Susie caregiver only spend 10 minutes? But Michael spends 20, what's going on there? And maybe it's because the resident feels more comfortable with the other caregiver, and that's why they're asking for more help from that person. But that's really going to help us in terms of training, like you said, not punitive, but in terms of training, but also, once again, capturing what type of care and how much care does that resident really need. Maybe we're finding, now they need standby assistance in that shower to keep them safer, right? So we're able to determine, how much time is really being spent. And that's going to drive, once again, our labor and how much labor do we need to really, take care of these residents the way they need to be taken care of.
So I want to come back to staff and all this stuff. How do you make it so that your team members see this as a positive and not just Big Brother micromanaging?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard, right? People don't like change. It's hard for them. But we're really there to help them do a better job. And if you're in our industry, you must love what you do, because it's a really hard industry to be in. And so it just means that it's going to help you take better care of your residents, the people that you love to come and show up for work for, right? And we're not trying to take away anybody's job, but the labor force is shrinking and shrinking, and our seniors we're getting more and more of them, right? And so if we can show them that it's going to take away these 5 steps so that you can spend more hands-on time with the resident, I think they'll buy into it more and more.
Yeah. That, to me, that I think the biggest is the biggest best way to sort of sell this is just for them to see that it's actually making their jobs better, more fun, and to see that it's having an impact on a positive impact on the residents. Where do you see AI? What role do you see AI playing in terms of interacting with family members? I think as we talked before the show that one of the things as a family caregiver experiencing it, I felt like there's real opportunity in the industry to just love on the family members more, and which has lots of benefits, right? I mean, it means that they're going to be less likely to complain, more likely to tell good stories. Any thoughts on how maybe either AI or just technology in general is used to make that a better experience for family members?
Yeah, I mean, right now it all sits upon the shoulders of our leaders in the community, right? And they have a lot going on. So, they don't get to spend that time necessarily teaching, let's say, our family members, which is so important. As we've been in it for a long time, and we understand the different steps and where things go. But for most of our family members, this is the first time, right? And so, especially when you get to dementia, they don't understand this world at all. And it's very, very hard for them. So to give them resources at their fingertips to ask a question to and go, is this strange or is this okay? Like, my mother never used to swear and now she does. Like, what's happening? I think that's going to be very helpful to them. A, to feel like they're not alone. B, to know that it's normal probably. And to give them ideas on how best to deal with their loved one. Because they don't know how. And like I said, right now it's our leaders in the community teaching them how to have an impactful, great conversation, especially with those loved ones with dementia.
So I've got a great idea for you. So you've got all these mascots that are faced for your team. What if you trained that mascot for family members for these questions that get asked a lot? And that could be pretty interesting.
That could be pretty interesting. Yes.
It might be something as simple as, I'm going to go visit mom in the memory care today, and it's really hard because I don't know what to talk to her about. Give me some ideas of what questions I might ask her or things I could talk about. That could be really interesting, I think.
No, I agree. I think it really could be very interesting. I'm not there yet. I got a lot to do, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's one thing. That's the one thing that, as I've talked to so many operators about their AI journey, nobody's got it all done because it is so broad of what can be done, right? And so you pick and choose the stuff that you're passionate about, the stuff that you think is going to make the biggest impact on your organization. And of course, that's why we're still looking to pull a bunch of people together to sit and just talk about what they're doing, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to learn from you and say, oh man, how about you share some of that stuff? And you can share that. And then somebody else is going to have something, you go, oh man, I could really use that. And it means you don't have to start from scratch, because mostly people are starting from scratch on all of this.
Yeah,
and it's a way to just really jumpstart things. So it's sort of like being a human, large language model of people, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
So, what else? So 5 years from now, more people, less people.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's less people. That's the reality of it. And so, automating everything that we can is, automating the billing. I mean, we do manual billing right now, all of that stuff, everything that we can automate. That's the mundane tasks where we can still be hands-on to do the care, because that's what we're here to do, is going to be really important. So those office paper pushing things, anything like that we can, taking vitals, it's obviously they're vital, but we can get a machine to do that, right? And do it automatically. And it also takes error out. One keystroke wrong and you've entered the wrong temperature. But if it's AI or some machine doing it, it's going to be correct all the time, right? And you're going to get that information faster. You're going to get alerted to it. You're going to get ahead of problems for our residents, which means better care, longer life, better lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, and I think about, vitals, right? You get them every time you go to the doctor, but I'm not sure what they actually do with that. And are there trends, right? And I mean, just sort of a simple example, right? When I go to the doctor and I have a temperature of 98%, 98.6, that's normal, except that it's not normal for me because my normal is really like 97, right? And so being able to have that data just makes you better at what you do, serves your residents better. So anyway, Hilary, we're about out of time. This has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate your passion for people and what you're doing with AI and your willingness to share for us today. So thank you so much for joining me. Hang on for just a minute after we're off the air, and I'd love to catch up with what you think.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.